sucker for is the Klay Thompson rhetoric right now. Klay Thompson stuff is, he's getting hot. It's getting hot as free agency gets closer and closer and closer. This is the anniversary of Game 4 of the NBA Finals. That Game 4 in Boston when Steph Curry went crazy for 43 points and 13 rebounds, and the Warriors rallied from a 7-point fourth-quarter deficit, down 97-90. Klay hit a big shot. Wiggins hit a big shot. Curry was doing his thing. Key offensive rebounds by Kevon Looney. But on the Plus Minus podcast with Anthony Slater, Marcus Thompson, and Tim Kawakami, little nuggets are coming out about Klay Thompson. And are we ready for this? I feel like we've braced for it. I've already mentally kind of moved on. Whether or not Klay's going to be here or not next season, we shall see. But I've moved on thinking that Klay's going to be gone. You got another report yesterday about the Orlando Magic going in on Klay and Paul George. But here's Marcus Thompson on how he says it doesn't look good for Klay Thompson being back in a Warrior uniform.
His situation remains very unsettled behind the scenes. I wrote about it last week.
It's going to depend.
I don't think it looks good for him coming back. I think he's going to get a bunch of money thrown at him. And I know it's crazy.
Shorter term deal, like balloon payment.
I know. Oh, no, man. Teams are out here desperate. We watched 4 teams in the playoffs could not score. They just could not score. And here's a hired gun. I think somebody's going to offer him a bunch of money. Then Klay's got to decide, do I take the money or do I?
And what that number is. Is it going to? Are they offering him 30 or are they offering him?
I think he can get it. I think he can get it.
Now, Marcus Thompson thinks he can get it. I've been saying all season he could get it. If somebody's going to be desperate for that shooting. You know, talking to people around the league all season long, they value Klay shooting. But that's Marcus Thompson saying it doesn't look good for Klay coming back. Now, what's your thoughts on that in just a second? Here is what's interesting to me. Listen to Tim Kawakami on what Klay was pissed about. Now, I know Willard Divs broke this down to nauseam Friday afternoon, but here it is in case everybody missed it over the weekend. More in the Plus Minus podcast. Anthony Slater, Tim Kawakami, Marcus Thompson. Something Klay was pissed at, and maybe he hasn't gotten over.
It's fair if Klay's
he was pissed at him at the end of the season. There's no question. He was pissed at them at the end of the season.
And by the way, not very happy with upper management's dealing with his extension talks.
It's the whole thing.
Or non-dealing, I should say.
Yeah,
almost.
it's the whole thing. And I think he took offense when Draymond, not at Draymond, but that Draymond said, hey, look, if they signed him to a 4-year, $180 million deal when he tore his ACL. And, Klay didn't love that. And it's like, hey, what were they going to do?
What were they going to do? You think?
I know.
Imagine if they did
that was probably his most, he had a very interesting exit interview for several reasons, but that was probably the answer that was most revealing.
He had that.
People should go back and listen to it if they want.
Just laugh can you imagine?
What? I just tore my ACL trying to win my 4th title.
Yes. And he's right. It just was a very interesting moment. And that Draymond's the one who brought up. No one said, hey, Draymond, the fact that they gave Klay all this money after he's tore ACL. No, Draymond brought it up himself. So interesting stuff. And again, I've heard it's not as pissy right now. It doesn't mean they're going to do a deal. I just think they've had some understanding.
They've had time.
Yeah. It's just he was pissed. Klay was pissed.
Now, Klay was pissed. And from my dealings with NBA players over the years, football players, baseball players, there's an unwritten rule. You don't speak on another man's money in those circles. You don't talk contracts. You don't bring up contracts. You don't talk about what's in the man's pockets or in his bank account. So that's, if Klay's pissed about that, it doesn't surprise me. Because
pissed at Draymond.
Pissed at Draymond for that. Because in all my dealings and going to the locker rooms and hearing unwritten rules and talking to players off the record, and this is not just over the last 4 years. This is what I've been doing the last decade and hearing from players. And even in our business, radio hosts, we don't walk around, hey, Guru, how much do you make? Hey, Shasky, how much you making? What's your contract look like? That's off limits.
Most settings in the workplace, it's a taboo topic to talk about how much people are making.
Yeah, so.
Most settings.
Well, I think it should be all settings. You don't talk about what other people make. You just don't. It's you just don't do it. So I could see why maybe Klay was a little pissy at that. I was like, why are you bringing up my money? What if they didn't say, you know what I'm saying? It's just, you just don't go there.
Yeah, this is really unfortunate. Well, let's get to the Draymond aspect first, because there's also the bite that you played at the beginning of him being frustrated at management. So let me get this straight. Draymond, who already alienated Kevin Durant, who already alienated Jordan Poole, now is alienating Klay Thompson. Interesting.
Well, I don't know if he's alienating Klay Thompson. I wouldn't go that far. But Klay was a little like, bringing up my buddy. Why are you bringing up my buddy?
Again, Draymond.
So I wouldn't say alienating, but he was ticked
okay,
off.
well, whatever word we want to use to describe it, but Draymond involved in some way of ticking someone off, and wow, shocker. Now, the part about Klay, the reality is, and this is just how I feel, and people can disagree, I just feel like Klay's been angry a lot for the last 2 years. Angry at himself, angry at his play, angry at the fans, angry at management over the contract talks, angry at, other players around the league, whether it be Devin Booker, angry at the role that he has, angry at the shot selection that people were frustrated with him and they had to sit down with him multiple times 2 years ago, and frustrated with the role he had this year. I just feel like he's frustrated in general. And I get it. Like I do. I understand. Like he's at a very difficult spot in his career, and it's playing out in the public eye. And I'm trying to be empathetic on that on some level. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know what he wants. Does he just want to stay with the Warriors at all costs? Does he want top dollar? Does he want respect?
It's respect. I think it's respect.
I think that they've been respectful.
Well, they have been respectful.
They brought him back after not playing for 2 years and put him right into the starting lineup, and they tried to acquiesce him, and they did everything they could to try to make him feel good. It's not their job to make him feel happy every day.
Well, number one, I don't think that's the case, that he was annoyed every single day. Number one, I think he was very happy. He helped you win a fourth championship. He helped you win a fourth championship. Number two with Klay Thompson, it's a respect thing, because when you're homegrown, and you're putting up his, like, especially last season. Like, think about 2 seasons ago when they lose to the LA Lakers in Game 6. Wiggins left the team for 2 months. He was very inconsistent on the court. Very inconsistent on the court. But Klay got a lot of the rhetoric. Klay got a lot of the talk. Klay got a lot of the blame from the fans or from whatever. And so when you get offered a 2-year, $48 million deal, and you're hearing that, hey, we want the big three to retire and want to wear Warrior uniforms forever, and you get a 2-year deal or 2-year offer, and you look at Draymond Green, and you look at, it's not even the money, it's the length of the year, the length of the contract. Wait, I'm getting 2 years, but these guys get 3 years and a player option? Yeah, it's a respect thing. It's a respect thing. And now that you're a free agent, and maybe he realizes that he maybe needs to adjust his game, and maybe this situation isn't the best for him. I would say he wasn't happy, but a lot of things didn't go his way. But by the way, everybody bitched and moaned about Klay Thompson coming off the bench. One of the things that doesn't get talked about enough is that he did go to the bench. And he went to the bench, and he played very well, and you didn't hear a peep out of him. Actually, you heard a young man who matured when he came off the bench. What did he tell Fitzpatrick over? Oh, you told us this on the post-game show, too. Coming off the bench is actually good for me. I can see how the game is flowing. I can see what I need to do to kind of interject myself and come in and help the team. He came off the bench and played a lot better. So I don't know. Like, I thought the young man kind of sat back, was happy, realized that, hey, I'm going to come off the bench and help this team win and get my 30 minutes. What else do you want from me? What else do you want?
I just, look, these guys all talk about how it's a business and you can't talk about what other people are making, yet they want their contracts to align with each other. Like, there's a lot of double talk. And I honestly do see both sides of the conversation. But the reality is like, if you guys are all going to say it's a business, and then get offended when business is being conducted, I don't know, man. I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too. And this to me, just the writing's on the wall, and it feels like the timing is right for all parties to just kind of go in their separate ways. There's too much emotions, and there's too much anger. It feels like a relationship.
I don't think there's any anger. I think the anger is just maybe some annoyance. But you look at the offense. Like, let's just talk basketball.
You feel disrespected by the amount of years.
Let's just talk basketball for a second.
By the amount of numbers.
Let's talk basketball for a second. Is this situation, in terms of a basketball team and the way the Warriors play, the best basketball situation for Klay Thompson? All the movement, read and react. If you're playing, with non-scorers, that's going to restrict the airspace of Klay Thompson. It's going to restrict the airspace of Stephen Curry. Maybe Klay sees that, saying, I don't always get the best shot opportunities here because We're not able to break people off the dribble. We're not the most athletic team. Maybe I need to go somewhere where they have more athleticism, more star power, more guys who can create wide open shots for me. Just from a basketball standpoint. Is it the best situation for Klay Thompson? Strictly basketball, just in terms of running up and down the court, playing defense, playing offense in this system that Steve Kerr employs, the motion offense with read and react. I ask, is this the best system for Klay Thompson moving forward?
I mean, where he gets to shoot 20 times a game? Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
He shoot 20 times a game last year.
What was 17?
16. And then when he came off the bench,
shots,
15 times.
I think it's a pretty good system for him. I think he's also going to get How many of those shots
were wide open? How many shots were contested? How many times did you have to see? Klay Thompson last year averaged 14.7 shots per game.
Okay.
And that went down to probably like 12 once he came off the bench.
15 shots a game is still really good. I think. Maybe he wants more. I don't know. I think he works in a lot of systems.
How many of those shots were good, though? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's also his discernment.
But that's also when I'm looking at Klay Thompson, the way he ages, and the reason why I asked if it's the best system for him, because you're running around off multiple screens. We all realize he doesn't have the same legs that he had before the injuries. So that's a lot of movement. That's a lot of movement offensively. Then how does it translate defensively? Where's your legs at? Well, we saw with Steph Curry's legs, offensively and defensively, Curry was gassed by the end of the season. Those legs were damn near dead. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
he needed a day off.
So then you don't think it makes basketball sense to bring him back? That's what you're saying?
I think basketball-wise, it may be best for both parties to move on. And this is why I say that, too. Draymond Green basically acknowledged something on his latest podcast. He acknowledged something. And the Warriors as a whole may need to adjust. And maybe Klay Thompson doesn't fit into this new offense or this adjustment. During a recent episode of the Draymond Green Show, Golden State veteran champion provided his thoughts on another way the team can improve over the offseason. The outspoken forward believes this team needs to change its approach to get things back on track. Green said, it changes, and we're adjusting to that change, which is great. I think Steve Kerr is doing an incredible job where he's becoming more open to Jonathan Kuminga having the ball more, or Kuminga being in the pick and roll, running some ISOs for Kuminga. It takes some time to adjust to that when you've had the level of success we've had doing what we've done. So right there for Draymond Green, he's admitting and acknowledging that there could be a tweak in the system, that we'll see more uses for a player like Jonathan Kuminga, more pick and roll, and more ISOs. Where does Klay fit in that in this offense? For the amount of money that he may want and the amount of years that he may want, with the decision that you're going to have to make on Jonathan Kuminga in the next year or two, whether it's $30 million a year or whatnot, plus you still got Moses Moody. So I'm not sure the system, you could maximize Klay Thompson's usage in this system anymore. Now, you say 15 shots, but how many shots were good? How many shots were quality? You get what I'm saying?
No, I do, but I've watched him bring the ball up the court, not pass to anyone, and just chuck up a bad shot, or take a heat check after he hasn't touched it for 3 or 4 possessions. So, it goes both ways. I just think everybody's kind of saying the same thing without saying it, which is like, Klay's a role player at this point, and that's not a bad thing, or that's not some diminishing comment. It's just it is what he is right now, and we could talk about how much is a role player worth, and on each team, what is what does role player even mean, right? On some level, the ninth man is a role player, but you could be a very, very good role playing starter, and you could be a very, very good.
Klay Thompson's a ninth man. I think maybe a sixth man.
I'm trying to define the role. He could be a sixth man. He could be a fifth man, fourth man, whatever. But I just think he's a role player, and I don't know if he stays here, he views himself as a role player. I think when he stays here, he views himself rightfully as a pillar.
He's one of the main men.
Exactly. And so I think that there's this emotional barrier that is very difficult for the player and the team to kind of pound through, where your role evolves. I just think it's very difficult.
Well, there's a couple things here. One, bringing the ball up the floor. Klay should never be bringing the ball up the floor. Sometimes you get that in the offense when you don't know what the hell you're doing. But Klay Thompson's not that guy, and I think he needs to go to a team where they have shot creators for him. When it comes to Klay Thompson, and I'm looking at him, so in the 18-game stretch where he didn't start, there's 4 starts within this 18-game stretch. He basically came off the bench. He averaged 14 shots a game, averaged 18 points, shot 44%, and he shot 42% from 3. I mean, those are some great numbers. There's a lot of NBA teams that will take those numbers. But what I'm focused on here as we move forward, and Klay may move forward. He may move on. And I think that a change of scenery is best for both parties. I'm not comfortable with seeing the Warriors pay Klay Thompson $30 million a year, $25 million a year at this point, because that's basically saying running it back with a 10th place team. I don't think you could do that. But if Klay Thompson decides to move on, fine. My interest here is in what Draymond Green said. I think we're adjusted to change. I think Steve Kerr's doing an incredible job where he's becoming more open to Jonathan Kuminga having the ball more, or Kuminga being in the pick and roll, running some ISOs for Kuminga. It takes some time to adjust to that when you've had the level of success that we've had doing what we've done. And now I ask the question, 888-957-9570, how are we feeling about Kuminga getting more usage, having the ball more, playing more pick and roll, playing more isolation? I've heard from a lot of you out there. You want Steve Kerr to adjust your system. You want Steve Kerr to run more pick and roll, high ball screens. Maybe that's what Jonathan Kuminga and Stephen Curry. Are we willing to deal with that? Because there's going to be growing pains with that. And then if you do that, now we get to see if Kuminga's worth that $30 million per season. Now you get to make an educated, logical decision on whether or not you want to extend Jonathan Kuminga. But right there, Draymond Green admitting that Steve Kerr's doing everything he can to implement Jonathan Kuminga more in his offense. Is Kuminga ready for that? And are we good with that as a fan base? We want to see the youngsters with the Giants, right? Ramos, Matos, and everybody else. Want to see the youngsters with the Niners. Now you get to see a youngster who's going to be in the elevated role, Jonathan Kuminga.
I think you can run some of that stuff in certain times of the game. I don't think he's ready. Like, for this team to be a playoff team and be an impactful team, man, I mean, how many times have I watched Kuminga triple into someone and crash? Doesn't mean he can't grow. But the players around him, and this goes back to the Klay Thompson thing, like, the players around him really matter. Like, if Draymond's on the floor with him while he's doing that, whoever's guarding Draymond's going to sag off. As we talked about help the helper and all that stuff with the Boston conversation. Just imagine you have 5 defenders, and if you're not defending Draymond Green on the outside, the second Kuminga puts the ball on the floor, what is the guy guarding Draymond going to do? He's going to run over and double Kuminga. So unless Kuminga is going to take a quantum leap forward as a passer and in discernment, and I hope he does, call me a little skeptical, I think we're in for a big growth period. Like, you're going to see a very steep learning curve. You don't just all of a sudden become, and again, this is like the top end of it, like a Luka Doncic, where, hey, I'm going to run high pick and roll, and I'm going to destroy you from three-point land, mid-range. I could go to the rim because I'm bigger and stronger, and I could pass the ball. Like, there's many freeway headings from where Kuminga is currently, or at least what I saw last year, and where the best players in the league who do that high pick and roll stuff. I think at times, second unit, running elements of it, I got to see what it looks like.
All right, here's Draymond Green on making.
I feel like a hater bringing that, like.
Yeah, you do sound like a hater. Here's Draymond Green on making the adjustments.
Like, we changing, bro. Like you said, we getting older. Like, we are not the same basketball team that we were in 2019. Or even in 2022, for that matter. Like, it changes, you know what I'm saying? And I think, we're adjusting to that change, which is great. Like, I think Steve is doing an incredible job of where he's becoming more open to, like, Jonathan Kuminga having the ball more, and, like, Kuminga being in the pick and roll, and, like, running some ISOs for Kuminga, whereas, it takes some time to adjust to that when you've had the level of success that we've had.
So that's Draymond Green alongside Danny Green, the Green Show, the Draymond Green Show, but Danny Green sat in on it. He's a champion as well, as Draymond Green explained where the Warriors are at. So I look at Jonathan Kuminga's last 41 games, right? 41 games played. You say maybe he can't take the Luka jump. Nobody asked him to be Luka. But you see what he did in the last 41 games, right? And this is just raw data. And then you look at the eye test, and it tells you that he was impactful this season, where he averaged 19 points. He shot 55% from the floor. He shot 35.5% from three. And his free throws, he shot 79% for the free throw line. And you saw the little 10-foot midi that he always had in the post-up game, whether it's the mid-block, down on the paint. He can hit the little fadeaway right there in the paint. He'll dunk on your head. He's got the mid-range jumper. I think defensively he could take another step as a on-ball defender and being good. Off the ball, he may get lost at times. He needs to work it out. But on the ball, on-ball defender, in which Klay was so good at, in which Wiggins was so good at a couple seasons ago. I think Kuminga could be so good as a two-way player, as an on-the-ball defender. Offensively, it's not the worst thing in the world to have JK say, hey, clear it out, let me go to the rack and draw a foul. I think he can take that next step. The guy averaged 19 points a game over his last 41. If he gets the usage that he got during that stretch, who's to say JK can't give you 22, 23 points per game with high efficiency and more rebounding? He gave you 5.5 rebounds in just 29 minutes.
Well,
right? So I think he can take a jump. Jordan Poole took a jump. Why not JK? Jordan Poole took a massive jump during that championship season.
No, he took. I mean, to average 20 in the league is really impressive. I mean, to make a 6-7 point jump up to go to 22, 23, he'd be like the most improved player in the league. He'd be at least on a very short list.
Nice,
right?
he did it.
Yeah,
and I take away those.
He had the ball.
Like I know he averaged 16 points per game overall.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at when he sat there and went to the media after the Denver Nuggets game, in which he didn't play the last 18 minutes. And he was seeing sporadic playing time, whether it was 16 minutes a game, 18 minutes a game. Wasn't playing at crunch time.
I mean, let's go to the closeout game.
Once he took that step, JK became a different player. Damn near averaged 20.
No, I understand. But, like, they need to make moves to free up playing time for him because, like, I go back to that play-in game, and I'm saying, like, he had, like, a 3-minute stretch in the second quarter where he scored the 3 buckets in a row or whatever it was. He barely played, it felt like, until the game was decided.
Well,
so, like, they need to clear spots for him to play.
Well, that's where Klay Thompson moving on. There's going to be usage opportunities once Klay moves on. Because it sounds like Klay will move on. And how are we feeling about that? 888-957-9570. Are we ready for that as a